guys, Steve Maeda from theredmole.com, and this is body language video number 4. Alright, you can see we're gonna have to stop. Hey, this is the 4th video in our body language series, and before I get started with the lesson plan for this, I want to go over a certain concept with you. In order to truly illustrate this, I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that you have just 20 seconds. 20 seconds to make an impression on somebody that doesn't just get their attention, but actually goes deep. It actually builds a connection. It starts defining the sexual roles between you and that person. Now, if you were to imagine this, probably thinking, man, that would be tough. But the reality of it is it's really easy. And what makes that work is actually body language. And in fact, the techniques that I've taught you in the first 3 videos, as well as this video. But what's really making that work, and to truly understand this, it's not just the techniques. It's actually a unique mix between those techniques and the principles of social dynamics, attraction, and seduction. Now we're going to talk more about this towards the end of the video, but I want you to keep that in mind. Now also I want you to go to theredmole.com. Make sure you read the accompanying article to this video because there's a lot more information on it. And if you're not on my email list, sign up on my email list. The email list gets out content which is arguably better than what you've seen in these videos. And aside from that, you'll get to learn more about my workshops, about my relationships with my students I'm really proud of, that have all gotten amazing results, and get to hear about more about my life and whatnot. So let's stay in contact, and until then, let's watch this video. So, still continuing, still moving on. Some really quick, awesome body language techniques, some touching techniques. When you first meet somebody, you shake their hand, right? Not a big deal. It happens. Very normal occasion. So I say, hey, what's your name? And she says, Nina, all right? So as soon as she does that, I always pull in, right? And I actually learned this from talking to the On The Mat guys. Notice the shirt. You met him in Vegas. But when you meet somebody, you say, hey, what's going on? Nice to meet you. Whoa, what's your name? You give that pull, right? Any type of pull is something which, one, it acts on so many levels, right? And I don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but that pull actually generates like a little bit of attraction. Now notice I'm not being mean. I'm not pulling somebody in hard. I'm just saying, hey, I want to get to know you, right? And I'm moving in as well, but it's more of them happening. Is going to do a lot. Now another way to do that is when you're talking to somebody and you're actually, if you watch some of the other videos on maintaining attention from somebody, that's great. You want to add a little bit of a seductive edge to that, so we're communicating with the way we're touching and the way we're acting, how we're actually acting in a sexual way. We can have little pulls in that, right? So we're like, hey, what's going on? What, you're not paying attention? Come here. That pull is actually going to do a lot in order to maintain and spin and cycle that attraction. If you watch the other video when we're talking about how to do some seductive body language and touching by controlling the waist, we always want to end up around there where we're controlling this area, that hip area. And, oh man, there's so much. I think we're going to have to do another video, huh? Okay, but just remember when you meet somebody, hey, nice to meet you, what's going on, right? There's a little bit of a pull there. And I immediately, of course, go around the waist. But aside from that, even if we're talking, our conversation's kind of dying down, you want to insert some sort of tease to re-stimulate or reframe something. It's like, what are you talking about? No, what do you mean? There's a little bit of that pull that pulls us into a good area where we're paying attention. It's collarbone to collarbone, maybe a little bit more centered, but we're not really crossing center lines. And we're using that to maintain a sexual, kind of like underlying tone, one that's good and healthy and attractive that women want to feel. we saw it. There we saw a perfect example of, once again, mixing in those ideas of attraction, right? And mixing them in with seduction right from the start. Now, what I want to hit on first here is that idea of mixing principles and the techniques. Now, to illustrate that, let's go over the first 3 videos. They're really important. They're showing you all sorts of techniques which are also showing you how to showcase these principles, all right? Now, so video 1, we learned how to show intent, right? By getting a little bit closer and by possibly asking a question when we got close, that would show intent. That would actually build a sexual definition. Go out and try it. It works great. Now, the techniques are getting closer and asking a question and getting closer. The principle is showing intent and asserting your dominance, all right? Being the one who's defining that role. In the second video, we learned the angles of seduction, the angles of how you can stand, how you can get closer, how you can use your center line and their center line to actually get closer and project your sexuality. It works so consistently, it's probably one of the most overlooked things out there. I mean, nobody else is teaching it. But the technique are the angles, all right? And maybe using your center line and getting closer. What the principles are the intent and expressing your sexuality and actually showing dominance with arousal at the same time. Now, we take it a step further in video 3 and in this video, where we actually have different actions which work as sexual spikes. We see them work as sexual spikes with Nina in the videos. All right? Now, what's happening there is the techniques might be pulling around the waist in video 3 and even with the handshake, but that pull is actually showing our assertion, showing our dominance, and it's really sending those spikes out there. All right? The principles beyond all that are the dominance, are the compliance of the action, the compliance of sexuality mixing with those actions. Look, the ideas of social dynamics, the ideas of people going out there connecting are bigger than anything I could ever teach you. All right? We're humbled by them. They're bigger than anything. They blow any routine out of the water. So what we need to realize is we need to understand the principles, and we need to mix in some techniques which work for ourselves because everybody's different, and be creative with them. And that's how we're going to get results. Watch these videos over and over again and look, see how far you can take it. I'll tell you right now, look, I have students, all different walks of life. Some that are rich, some which don't have money, some who have great jobs and a great, stereotypical identity, and other ones who have no jobs, but just know how to show their identity in a right way. And it's across the board. People who are with physical handicaps, people who never thought that they were, allowed or even should feel an emotional connection, let alone a sexual connection with people, and yet been able to get the same results. And the reason why is because we mixed these principles of social dynamics in with their lifestyle. And that's the essence of what I teach. So hey, my challenge to you is, let's go out and make a connection. Let's go out and change something, because look, it's real easy to do. And on that note, hey, go to theredmole.com, sign up on my email list, and let's get going.